Yo, what is up guys, Gray here, and today we've got our draft analysis for Season 7 of the BBL. Before we get into this, I want to say thank you to Liv for inviting me into the league. And yeah, this is actually our first taste of Ubers in Gen 8. We have played Ubers in Gen 7 and APA Academy Season 2 and a couple of Showdown leagues, but I would say that honestly, the knowledge of Ubers is a little bit limited, but we're kind of here to have fun, to learn, and to click buttons. As my good friend Shay would say, we're just here clicking buttons. So before we get into the draft, make sure to go check out all the coaches that are involved for this season. I think there was 16. I could be wrong. It could be 20. There was coaches in this. I think there was 16. And of that, we were right near the back of the draft. So all of the super broken Ubers, or the very, very good Ubers, were most likely going to go. And unfortunately, that means that we're not going to get something that's, I guess, classed as like an S tier Uber. I would love to pick up Marshadow. Marshadow looked like a lot of fun, but unfortunately, Zane got first pick, and I invited Zane into the league. I managed to get him involved, and he doesn't give me first pick. That's kind of that's honestly, I feel a bit betrayed. But no. Before I ramble on too much, let's get straight into the draft. If you watch my UPA one, I'm just going to do all the draft in one go. You've already seen the team. It's on the screen. If you want to click off now, go ahead. If you want to know why I drafted what I drafted, then stay on. But I know you guys are probably just here to see what the final team is, and that's the final team on the screen. So I know what you're all looking at. The bottom right-hand corner is our premier pick, our S tier. Our best pick in the entire draft. It's Greedent. We are indeed using Greedent again. I want to see how it does in Ubers. I'm actually genuinely curious to see how it stands up against some of the crazy mons that are allowed in this league. But that wasn't our first pick. I know it's a shock. It may be surprising. But our first pick was actually Naganadal. And this is a mon that I used in PCL, which was a Gen 7 league very early on in my draft league career. You'll actually be able to see, if you go back to the first videos on my channel, I used Naganadal for 2 weeks before I got kicked for being slightly late with uploads. Yeah, unfortunately we weren't able to complete that season. So I wanted to use Naganadal just because it's a fantastic mon. Sure, it's not like a top tier Uber by any means, but it can be very, very good. 121 speed, 127 special attack. We don't mention the bulk, it's not the best. 73 across the board is reasonable, but it's not the best. Naganadal has just got fantastic special coverage, the ability to kind of just sweep with Nasty Plot, plus speed boosting on the Beast Boost. It's able just to kind of snowball out of control. Its coverage is incredible. Poison Dragon Fire, honestly, is all you need to hit most teams. It really doesn't. There's not much that will be able to switch into that coverage. So you can run Nasty Plot, 3 attacks, and be able to sweep quite a few teams. But this gen also got access to spikes and toxic spikes, which is going to be an interesting potential bring. A door slams downstairs. Yeah, it could be a potential utility option this gen, but you're probably going to see mostly just either specs, scarf, Nasty Plot, something along those lines. Just as our kind of our best sweeper on this team. We also have other great sweeping options with Lando and Heracross, things like that. Even Cinderace can be a great sweeper if you put it in the right place. But yeah, Naganadal was our first pick. I just kind of wanted to use it. It's such a fun Pokemon to use. Great utility as well. Great pivot as well with U-turn. But honestly, most time you just want to click a button of Naganadal. You don't want to be clicking U-turn. So yeah, first pick Naganadal. Great special attacker. To partner with that, I wanted something that was able to break through bulky steals better, because Naganadal does struggle a little bit, even though it gets Fire Blast, and if it sets up to +2, there's not many steel types that can take that hit. I wanted to have the ability to kind of scare off steel types coming a little bit. So I picked up Cinderace, and this is actually Lindro. Yep, Libero Cinderace. So we are able to get the stab boost on every move that we use. Really strong mon. Great speed tier to go with Naganadal. It's just a little bit slower, but It's effectively like a physical Naganadal in its stats to an extent. A little bit bulkier in its defenses, but 116 attack. Still going to hit really hard with Pyro Ball, Gunk Shot, High Jump Kick, U-Turn, Sucker Punch, then Headbutt. There's so many coverage options that we can potentially have. Does get access to Court Change as well, which technically counts as like hazard removal, I guess. If at least like it could deter potential hazards from coming. I think against this team, you'd be hard pressed to see Toxic Spikes come against it. And honestly, Spikes aren't amazing against my team either, so hazards may not be the biggest thing. But at the same time, having that ability to potentially have Court Change can be really nice on what is potentially going to be a heavy-duty boots mon most weeks. But Cinderace is just a really strong physical attacker. At this point in this gen, you've seen what Cinderace can do in most regular draft leagues without the Livero boost. With Livero, I'm really excited to see what I can do with it. It's the first time I'm actually using Cinderace at all in any draft league. And I was able to pick up like 2, I guess, budget Ubers in this. I think Naganadal was like 20 points and Cinderace was 18, and we have 130 budget, which meant that I had tons of budget to use on other mons. So next up I picked up Lando T. Lando gives me a great ground immunity because I desperately needed a ground immunity in this team. Naganadal and Cinderace both being very much weak to them and unable to take hits. Lando gives me, honestly, one of the best ground types as well as one of the best ground type immunities. So it kind of gives me both things in one. Like, I always like to draft something that counters my own draft. So Lando, yeah, gives me a really good way of being able to deal with ground types, as well as also being a very, very strong physical attacker. Having the ability to potentially run special as well. Rock Polish is a great option, as well as giving me arguably one of the best stealth rockers, if not the best, outside of like Clefable maybe. It's a fantastic stealth rocker. Also gives me a pivot with U-turn. Everything so far has got U-turn. Everything can pivot into each other. So yeah, Lando, I don't think I need to say too much about. I'm trying to keep this one quite short, but Lando is just a fantastic Pokemon. Very much looking forward to using it. I used it in UBL. I didn't expect to necessarily pick it up in UBL, but it gives me a full season of using a Lando T, so I'm looking forward to using it. Then we just kind of went with what was the best thing left on the board, in my opinion, with the typings that we didn't have, and that was Tapu Lele for me. Tapu Lele, I think, is criminally underrated in this gen. For some reason, it keeps going down and down in points. I still think it's a phenomenal special attacker. Choice Specs has very few switch-ins. You also have to predict whether it's going for a Psychic move or Fairy move sometimes. So if you bring in your Dark type, if it clicks Focus Blast on your Steel type, then you're having a bad time. Shadow Ball to deal with Ghost types. It's just a fantastic Pokemon all around. Base 130 special attack, nice speed tier at 95. Yeah, there's also other sets that you can run, but I'm not going to give away too many sets. I think Specs and Scarf are like the most common, probably the ones you're going to see me use most. But yeah, Tapu Lele also gives me a great way of blocking any priority against my frail, speedier mons, and that can be coming really handy because yeah, both Naganadal and Cinderace don't particularly want to take strong priority, so Tapu Lele can help deal with that. Next up, we picked up, I'm going to pair these together because it's kind of our defensive core, Swampert and Corviknight. Both of them have great synergy, Swampert only being weak to grass, Corviknight times 4 resist grass, Corviknight being weak to the electric, which Swampert is immune to, and fire, which Swampert resists. I think these two pair together really, really nicely. Swampert gives me a good rocker, whilst Corviknight gives me a fantastic defog option. Also, both get, once more, the ability to give me momentum with flip turn and U-turn respectively. Yeah, this is just my solid defensive backbone, which realistically in Ubers I think you tend to go more offensive, but if we have a matchup where we can kind of play a bit more passively and a little bit more defensively, we're able to use Corviknight and Swampert, I think, pretty well. Lando also can be a great defensive option. And later in my draft, I pick up a couple of other bits that can be put into my defensive core, just kind of thrown in there. I just think this gives me a really nice defensive core to work off of. And yeah, it's great momentum into my my stronger mons because People tend to want to go into more offensive mons to deal with Corviknight, and grass types always want to try and come in on Swampert. Gives me Cinderace, gives me Naganadal. It's going to be, Swampert is just very nice for this team. Then we've got a couple of sort of budget, I guess, offensive mons with Heracross and Bisharp. Heracross gives me another Spikes option, Bisharp gives me another Stealth Rock option. Both can be very, very strong physical attackers. Bisharp with the Sucker Punch does give me priority, whilst Heracross is a great Scarf option. Surprisingly bulky on the special side as well, with base 95 per def, 18 HP. But the 125 in attack, they both actually share. Bisharp is more like a physically defensive offensive mon, and then Heracross a bit more specially defensive offensive mon. These two just give me some options for if I want to run, like if I don't want to run Corviknight as my steel type, I still got a steel type in the back with Bisharp. Heracross is just a really strong fighting type, especially with like Guts Flame Orb. It's a very, very strong wall breaker, whilst Bisharp is a great knockoff user, great Swords Dance mon as well, especially with Sucker Punch. As long as I'm not bringing Tapu Lele and setting up the Psychic Terrain, of course. Bisharp, I think, is just something that's a little bit underrated. I have seen it put in a lot of work in Draft League, and hopefully I can do the same. But in Ubers, it's going to probably be a bit more tough for Bisharp to get in that much work. Then I picked up Lantern and Greedent. Lantern just gives me a second bulky water. It's a little bit different to Swampert. It's more likely to be spamming Scald. It's got Volt Switch. It also gives me Heal Bell. To this point, my only cleric was Tapu Lele with Aromatherapy. And honestly, how often am I going to want to run Tapu Lele with Aromatherapy over any other set? So yeah, Lantern gives me a decent cleric, because my team does not appreciate burns too much, or basically Scald in general, it doesn't appreciate too much. So having Lantern's potential Water Absorb, potential Volt Absorb, depending on what kind of weeks, what team I want to bring. This also works really nicely with Corviknight. Again, like Corviknight is weak to Electric and Fire, which I can bring an immunity and also a resist with Lantern. And once again, Lantern weak to Grass, weak to Ground, and Corviknight deals with those just fine. So just give me another nice defensive pairing should I want to run Corviknight Lantern. I can run Corviknight Swampert. I can run like Lando Swampert, Lando Lantern, things like that. There's some good options for my defensive core. Greedent is Greedent. We all know what Greedent does at this point. It is one of those mons that people will always sleep on, and it will always put in work. It kills some of the things that you don't expect it to kill, and I'm really hoping that Greedent can put in the work, especially because some of these Ubers, like, I know they're looking for Okos, whilst Greedent is pretty bulky, able to heal itself up with the Citrus Berry Cheek Pouch, and it does a surprising amount of damage off that base 95 attack. Honestly, I don't think I need to explain what Greedent does nowadays, but yeah, Greedent, we've got to have it. It's pretty much like my mascot at this point. I think Greedent is probably overtaken Tyranitar as my channel mascot. I might even get the graphics done and just have Greedent be my mascot from now on, but that left us with 6 points, I believe. And I just decided to pick up Galarian Articuno. It was the best thing, in my opinion, for our team at least, in that 6 point tier. I feel like we don't necessarily care too much about steel types. My draft is kind of built around not caring too much about steel types. Like Naganadal can break through it with Fire Blast. Cinderace, I don't need to say why Cinderace and Lando beat them. We got Double Ground with Swampert as well. Heracross breaks through it. Corviknight doesn't care about most steel types outside like Heatran and Magnezone. And both of those I have like double ground types. So I felt like Galarian Articuno could be actually pretty beneficial on this team, because outside of steel types, it can actually do a lot of work. It gives me an anti-intimidate mon along with Bisharp. Both of those actually kind of prevent Intimidate coming too much, because you don't want to be bringing that against Defiant and Competitive, because you will end up taking a lot of damage. Yeah, so Galarian Articuno I thought was just a nice piece to end off this team. It gives me a speed tier, 95, that I kind of was wanting another mon in. Tapu Lele and Lando T are there. But also Galarian Articuno could work really nicely with the Psychic Terrain of Tapu Lele. It gives me like a weird sort of Psychic Terrain core that could work out. I don't even know if Galarian Articuno gets Expanding Force. I would assume it does. I assume it gets Expanding Force, but Yeah, it's just kind of a nice piece. It gives me another ground resist, which I kind of wanted. Ground immunity, because I do have a few ground weaknesses, mainly my top 2 mons, but it means that I can almost always run like 1 ground immunity each week. So yeah, that's always really nice to have. But that's going to be the team. I'm actually really looking forward to using this. There's some pieces that I've really wanted to use for a long time, and having the Ubers of Naganadal and Cinderace, I know they're not necessarily the best Ubers, but I think that my entire team, like my whole draft, kind of makes up for it. Like, I've got 2 of the quote-unquote weaker Ubers, but then I've got very strong mons, I feel, outside of the Ubers mons. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this season. It's going to be a shorter one. I think it's only 8 weeks, maybe 9 weeks, somewhere around there. And yeah, hopefully we're going to be able to do okay. Even if we don't make playoffs, I'm just going to have fun with this team and hopefully get a bit better at Ubers, because it's not a tier that necessarily I've played before. I'm not a massive fan of Ubers, because you can just come into a game and lose to an Uber. It's a little bit like Gmax, in the sense that you can kind of lose to the enemy, the opposing team's Uber, and that's kind of the game. But we'll see. Hopefully we do all right. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to using this team. It looks like a lot of fun on paper. So if you are looking forward to watching me use this team, please leave a like, subscribe so you don't miss out any of this season. I guess you got UPA as well that you want to potentially subscribe for. The draft analysis for that should have gone up yesterday. I think this goes up on a Sunday, so yeah, UPA would have gone up on a Saturday. Make sure to go check out that video, and check out all the coaches for BBL this season. And until the next one, have a great day, guys. Peace.